Okay, we are back live once again. I'm not really sure where the new science this week left off due to technical difficulties. Brendan, do you really want to go reiterate that again, or should we just continue on into the atheist?
No, that's all good. We can move on. We spent about, well, it's been about 20 minutes, so we can just proceed.
All right, so something that I wanted to mention really quickly before GE and Dieter go ahead and talk about their experience at the AACon. Um, there's something that I don't like about these conferences, and that is the fact that they seem to be almost exclusive to people that have the money in order to go. Now, we don't have Dieter here actually in the chat just yet. He's probably reconnecting, but I know that he spent quite a pretty penny on the hotel for the stay over the 3 nights, and then his food expenses if he had to take any taxis, and then the actual ticket to get into the conference, and whether he wanted to upgrade it to meet all of the special individuals that were guest speakers there. And of course, you want to do that. You can't just get the base level ticket. And so I'm really curious as to what we can do as an atheist community to stop making something like this so exclusive. If we can't change this system to make it more inclusive, then is there something else that we can do? Some other event where we can have these high-profile individuals come out? You know, because you may have someone that might be interested in going to one of these. They may be sitting on the fence, but then they see, whoa, a $250 ticket to go there. You know, I'm just saying, okay, Matt Dillahunty changes lives, okay? If people go there and they're sitting on the fence and they see him, they might become an atheist, okay? And we can't have this so exclusive to where some people can't go. So let's talk about that. Dieter is here, so Dieter, tell us about your roundabout costs for the event.
I'm not gonna tell you how much to spend.
I mean, just give us a general idea. We're not asking personal questions.
Nah, it's fine. It's I got one of the like slightly more expensive tickets because I wanted to go to some of the exclusive events, I guess they're called, but they really weren't. It was just like a private like lunch, and then I think you didn't have to pay extra for the tickets that people had to pay extra for. It wasn't more so much as like a special ticket. It was just kind of so you want to go to everything? All right, we'll just charge you for everything all at once. So that was nice, but I do kind of agree. I saved for this, and this is going to basically be my vacation for the year, was going to this event, and I have to say it was completely worth it. But if you aren't in a position where you can do that, I can totally say, like, very much disappointment. I mean, the student rate is $50, so that's much more doable, but not everyone's students. And even then, if you are a student, you can't always go, I'm just going to go ahead and skip 3 days and just go and hang out with atheists down in Memphis. So, as far
They
as
also
actually
may
getting.
not have a way to get there either. That's another thing. Or money for a hotel.
Exactly. A lot of people I talked to that they were actually from the general area, which that made it much easier. But there were people from absolutely everywhere. There were people from California. I came from up in Pennsylvania. Like, there's a lot of people just from the surrounding states. There's a lot of people from Texas. So that was interesting. But it's difficult to say because what would you do? You can't have the convention everywhere. So there's always going to be travel. There's always going to be expenses for people to stay somewhere. It seems like the best people can do is have really accessible shows, or at least after the convention, make the material really easy to find. Because the convention was expensive. It was like objectively expensive, so they had to cover all their costs. And even in the times when they're at a slightly less luxurious place, I mean, it was in the freaking Peabody Hotel. It's still expensive. So you can't. I don't really know what else to say. We can't make them free because we don't have legions of people paying for it for us.
Yeah, at least for me too. The cost was prohibitive for me as well. I mean, I wasn't intending on attending, and then kind of last minute, I was like, well, maybe I'll go. And then I looked into it, and it was $300 just for general admission ticket, let alone traveling, staying in a hotel. You know, and I mean, I could afford it, but it's a lot of money for anybody. So, but I mean, at the same time, you know, like you said, in your opinion, it was worth it. I mean, if you look at the events that they had, the speakers that they had, it was something that was really interesting to me. I think, you know, there's a lot of people there that I would like to have seen speak, a lot of the events I would like to go to, and a lot of people I'd like to meet and network with and things like that. But I guess in the end, it's the American Atheist Convention, and they are an organization, and you know, they're going to kind of do what they want to do, and if they feel that for their members is worthwhile and that it is a successful event, then I think they're going to continue doing that. So I know there's other conventions, you know, that may or may not be as expensive, so that might be something to look into, and they may be closer because there's various ones around the country as well. People can look into what they have locally. But yeah, just for me, I would have loved to have gone, but just wasn't able to. So, but I'm glad that you guys at least got to go and can tell us all about it. So there's that, anyways.
Well, I think another thing that we can do, okay, and I mean, let's not be strangers to the whole fundraising thing. I mean, if we want to organize and we want to effectively promote atheism in a positive way, we're going to have to do some level of fundraising. And, you know, a lot of people were involved with that in a church because most atheists were most likely religious beforehand, and they may have, you know, a negative perspective on that whole issue. But I think that we could actually do some kind of event, and it doesn't have to be every one. I mean, as Brennan mentions, there are some cheaper events. There's one that's going to be in Hickory, North Carolina, in like a couple weeks, and I think the tickets were like really cheap, like maybe like $50 to $100 based on whether you were a veteran, a student, or something like that. And those were like the VIP tickets or whatever. But then again, I think the people that were going to be there, you know, you don't have Jacqueline Glenn and Matt Dillahunties and Aaron Ross. It's more like Tracy Harris and, you know, Beth Tercel, which is not bad, but it's not the whole high profile. No, I love Tracy. Okay, no. I love Tracy. But yeah, I think there's something that we need to do. So, you know, maybe we'll discuss this amongst ourselves, and perhaps maybe Reason can do a little fundraising, and maybe we can sponsor a couple people to go to a high-profile event. I think that's something that we could definitely attempt to put together.
No, but even then, that's like less than a Band-Aid. That's kind of like, I don't know. I think if anything, we just have to raise awareness of these events even happening and kind of expound on why it's worth going, because it's a vacation. Like, it's a vacation.
When the Underground Railroad was founded and they saved the first 2 slaves, they were like, "Oh, that was just a Band-Aid."
We are not the Underground Railroad.
Boom! I just did that. So
we are not the Underground Railroad. Please do not compare us to the Underground Railroad.
Well, if I can interject real quick, you know, I won tickets to the American Atheist Conference through Be Secular, and I'm really grateful that they got me the tickets because, like, you know, as Brennan said, that, you know, they were about $300 for general admission. And so we had that paid for, but we still had to pay for like room and then food and whatnot. So, you know, we paid right about $500 for every night that we were there, and we were only there for each night of the actual conference. We didn't go for the stuff beforehand, of course, and then I didn't go to like any of the extra events, and so we did a really scaled back one. And so if we had had to pay for the tickets, it still would have been over $1,000 to go. I would like to specify, though, that the American Atheist National Convention is kind of a unique one. You know, it's put on by this national organization, and, you know, they really seek to bring in like a lot of big name people and really provide a full load of speakers. But, like, for instance, the Myth Information Conference that's in Milwaukee at the same time that ReasonCon is, that Aeolus mentioned, both of those events are relatively cheap. And David Silverman, for the American Atheist Conference, they advertise heavily in Memphis because most of the people that actually go to these conferences are local, and so what I think is a good way to do it, as far as getting these speakers' messages out there and whatnot, is we need to maybe try to get more conferences to do live streaming of the conference for those that can't pay to be there, to physically be there and meet people and whatnot. I think that maybe even having being able to pay a smaller fee to view it live or whatnot. I think that would be an awesome idea. Another way to do this is to do more conferences in more cities. If we have more conferences spread out across the United States, we can get the message spread out there to the people that are in those areas. And so those are just two ways that we can do this. Me with my page, I actually tried to post some clips from some of the speeches with relatively decent audio, and so I think maybe activists recording parts of a speech to that are important and putting them on like YouTube and whatnot, that could be another good way. I know that the American Atheist organization, they're actually they recorded everything and they are going to be providing it free on their Atheism TV, which ironically is actually making a move to Amazon Fire, which is their kind of video live streaming system that they got set up. So I mean, they're really seeking to make it a lot more accessible. But I think that if we implemented live streaming from conferences, and then more conferences across the United States, I think that those would be the key things to really focus on, rather than making them less expensive. Because I think that those that are really wanting to be there and meet people and whatnot are, not everybody is going to go to every single conference ever held in in the United States or anywhere. So I think that appropriately pricing them, like for the amount of stuff that the American Atheist provided, I think the ticket prices and everything was spot on. I mean, I think that was pretty affordable because, I mean, you got to hear so many amazing speakers and go and do so many amazing things and have a lot of amazing experiences. Like, for instance, Dieter here, he got to go up on stage with Matt Dillahunty and apparently receive psychic images from him. So, there's just... I think that that's what we need to focus on, just to reiterate, is more conferences and trying to work in live streaming of the conferences, the speeches, and everything like that.
So how about that convention? Yeah, let's talk about that. No, this is definitely a great idea, and I'm glad that we were able to talk about it. And gee, that's probably the best solution could have come up with, just trying to get it to stream to as many people as possible. And that's entirely doable. It's just freaking expensive because streaming equipment and getting active internet, it's a whole ordeal. But it's doable. So, yeah, I'm going to share that with people. Anyway, Aeolus, is it cool if we actually talk about the convention?
I thought that's what we were doing.
Okay, so I'll start us off, I guess. I was able to go to the workshop things Thursday, whatever number of weeks that was away, and it was fantastic. I think I went to 3 of them. There was like a general introduction to like atheism or something. I forget what the topic actually was, but it was Russell Glasser of American Atheists. It was David Silverman of American Atheists, and then Russell Glasser of the Atheist Experience. And they just went over a bunch of like interesting information. There was a bunch of questions that were asked. It was just cool to hear their perspectives on different ways to like pursue the atheist community, and I loved it. But what was cool is it was just a panel kind of discussion where you can just talk to the people directly in front of you. They would answer directly to you. The room only held like maybe 30 people at most, so it was kind of awesome. The next one I went to was It seemed like all of them were like, I guess the first one was more about media and how to do that, but then the second one was a lot more like directed questions at Jamila Bay, not David Silverman. It was Jamila Bay, Matt Dillahunty, and JT Eberhard. And before that panel happened, me and JT sang, what was it, A Whole New World from Aladdin? That was the first day of the convention, and I almost cried with joy. It was great. Everhard,
Yeah,
whatever. I always pronounce his name wrong. I'm sorry, JT. But it was actually great to hear their perspectives because I like never really heard Jamila Bay talk on something, and she is like as firebrand as Silverman, but like presents it in like the most like snarky way possible. Effectively, like, instead of going directly in your face and explaining, like, you were just wrong all the time about absolutely everything, like David Silverman does, it's more like a constant barrage of really pointed questions that are in a very genuine, but at the same time extremely sarcastic fashion. So that was just awesome. That was a great experience. The last of those things, the last of the workshops I went to was grieving without a god. It was technically a workshop for people who are going to become like counselors, or if they already are physicians. Half the people in there were doctors, and it was just like interesting ways to hold dialogues with people, and it was nice. Actually, I was pretty happy about it. And that was the convention didn't even start yet, and I think I met like JT. I saw Silverman again. I met Russell Glasser. I met Jamila Bay. I met like Matt Dillahunty. I met all these people. I think I met Aaron Ra in the lobby. It was just like heroes everywhere. But what was really cool about them was, although I fanboyed like a loser, at least in front of half of them the first time I actually spoke to them, it got really real really fast. And you start like arguing with them, like if you disagree with them, and they argue right back in your face. You ask them express questions you know they know something about. It's like, it was super cool to like have people become real people in front of you. Like, I probably talked the most with Aaron Ra over the entire, like, I was gonna say ordeal, but how was an ordeal? The entire convention. And we disagree on a bunch of things. And that's good. It was awesome.
Yeah,
We talked for a while.
Yeah, I didn't get there until Thursday night, and so I didn't really get to participate in a lot of things that Dieter here did, but I was able to get a lot of interviews with people that were there. I was doing some interviews for Be Secular, which I'm still working on putting together. But then I had these independent ones that I got, and I got like Damien Athope, Jacqueline Glenn, the Zombie Atheist. He's primarily on Twitter. Dieter is in there. I got a lot of really good input from people, and but as far as like the actual conference goes, I really liked being in a place that I felt more accepted than I generally do ever. Even my wife said that she felt more at home around the people that were at the conference than she does just in our general area with people around here, which I thought was pretty amazing. So the community aspect of the entire convention is something that really hit hard on me, as well as the speakers, of course. My personal favorite one of the entire weekend, other than God's Not Dead being riffed on by the Riff Tracks guys, the actual speeches, I have to say Sarah Moorhead's speech on the Hotline Project, that one really got me pretty hard. I've actually got a video of the transcripts on my channel, and hopefully I'm going to be helping them actually anonymize voices so that they can actually play the recordings. because they couldn't play the recordings because they weren't able to anonymize them. But I'm working out a way to anonymize it so that they can do it themselves and present the actual recordings. But she presented a really good mixture of both atheist callers as well as religious callers that were beginning to doubt, that were beginning to question, and the very last one was actually a 12-year-old girl who didn't believe in her parents' God anymore, but she didn't want to tell them because apparently the parents had said nobody's going to live in our house that doesn't believe in Jesus. And so there's just a lot of a lot of people out there that really need help, and the Hotline Project allows them to call in and get this advice, get this help, get this reassurance, and I really like that. But as far as the other speakers go, like Ayan Hirsi Ali, she was phenomenal up there, and I think a lot of people took her speech a couple of different ways. One way that they did, some people took it, is that she was trivializing the our problems with the religious right in our country as far as the LGBT community and whatnot. Some people felt she trivialized that, and then other people didn't take it that way. So me personally, I can see how people would take it as being trivialized, but it's really hard not to sound like you're trivializing it when you're comparing how other countries treat, the LGBT community. Now, with what she really pointed out was basically two levels of progress, basically, which her level that she's got more experience with is basically almost no progress. It might actually be regressing. But with over here, we do have the luxury of only having to be concerned with I guess hiccups is the way that the hiccups are becoming a lot more persistent, of course, but we are much closer to actual equality with the LGBT community than a lot of other places in the world. And I think that really kind of puts it in perspective. I don't think that we need to focus less on the problems that we have here at home. I think that if anything, it should really make us want to strive harder to keep these people down, to keep the religious right in check, because the contrast that she portrayed really does highlight how bad it can get. And I think that by speaking out and speaking against the religious right in our country, we are keeping them from getting as bad as it is outside the United States. So that's how I took her speech personally. I didn't take it as being trivializing or anything like that. And then I didn't get to go to a lot of the speeches that weekend, but another one that I liked was David Silverman. He presented this really good argument, which I think Dieter probably disagrees with on some level, about American atheists, really having a lot of successes with, bringing atheism to the forefront and normalizing atheism. And I definitely agree with the fact that more people need to start using atheist rather than some other terms, because a lot of other people don't understand what those other terms mean. Not necessarily that you need to change yourself or whatnot in order to get them to understand you. I just think that if you're a little bit more honest about what you actually believe, like do you believe there's no God, or do you not believe in a God? It's like, oh, no, I don't. Well, then you're an atheist, and nobody should be afraid to use the term, but I know that a lot of people still are. But I would say that those three speeches were a really big highlight for me over the past weekend, or a couple weekends ago.
What's kind of funny is I barely remember any of the speeches in a significant detail, because that wasn't even the speakers were great. And don't get me wrong, but the highlight of that entire trip was just the lobby. The lobby was just of the Peabody Hotel was just where everyone hung out between different shows, or when they just didn't feel like going to anything else. and that's just where I talked to people, where we got into like real conversations, and it was awesome. It was the lobby was just probably the biggest place it was exchanging ideas. There was a fair number of people who were just atheists that happened to be at the Peabody Hotel at the time, and they were just like, "Huh, what you guys doing here?" And it was great. I just loved talking to these people. When Aaron Ross showed up, I didn't know who he was because he was wearing his like biker gear, and I figured it out after a minute because he has like a very distinctive voice, and I was like, "Oh, that's who I'm talking to. Neat." But even that, I think the best time I had, and this definitely says something to my personality, was skipping talks to go argue with street preachers outside the convention center. And there was a couple of them. There was one that was just a nice person that was handing out Bibles, and I just had a good conversation with them. And then GE showed up, and we all started talking to him. And then his wife was there as well. I don't want to exclude her. But then the Bible person's partner showed up, and the moment they said in the beginning, like we were having a weird conversation about stuff, and then it kind of dipped a little bit into biology, and it's like, yeah, we know that there was two people at the beginning, and I was like, actually, we know for a fact that's not true, and I wasn't even being confrontational at this point. Yeah, I actually wasn't. And he looked at his partner and was like, I think we're done here. And just upped and walked away.
Yeah, they acted like we weren't even there. And I know as we walked away, I said a snarky comment about how Christian of them to do that. And Dieter was like, oh, don't be mean.
Don't be mean.
You mean there wasn't two people in the beginning? What is this blasphemy? There had to be one man and one woman that started it all, okay?
Even in the freaking Bible, there's more than two people. Ugh. Anyway, there's that guy. Then there was the sandwich board guy that was there for like all of Friday. Or all of Friday. It was all of Friday. And he was the one that was just like, a fool says within his heart there is no God, and on the back of it was something about planets and stars being proof of a God. We corrected him on what that passage was like 5 times, and he didn't register. So
yeah, because
go ahead.
Sorry to interrupt, Dieter. I was just going to interject with the fact that he only had half of it on there, and Dieter was actually like, "Well, did you not finish the verse?" And he's like, "I got the rest of the verse. It's on the back." And it's talking about stars and who made the stars and the moon, but the actual, because it's Psalms 14:1 is what it was, and so the actual back of the rest of the verse says that nothing that anybody that says that there's no God, they're a fool. Nothing that they can ever do is good, and nothing that they can't be good at all, right? Nothing they produced will be good. And so then I question him with, okay, do you use a computer? It's like, oh, okay, well then a gay atheist made that happen. So how can you say that they don't produce anything good? I think that if you were to weigh the scales with good and bad on the internet, it's going to come out on the good side.
Hey! Those computers were also used to make Hitler.
Wait, they made
Yeah. And porn.
And porn. That's right.
I think I won this argument.
Yeah. But then
don't forget about gay porn.
That doesn't exist because men actually hate touching each other.
There's porn, but then there's gay porn.
Your words don't make any sense. Those words don't go together. It's always porn is evil and also the gays.
Yeah.
So
they're separate.
You need and then also, or it doesn't make sense.
And just for the record, 2 women getting it on is not gay.
Anyway,
what I
halfway through this particular conversation, that's how you win arguments. These 2 guys came over from across the street because there's supposed to be this enormous prayer rally, and the prayer rally just died. Like 50, like maybe 100, maybe 200 people showed up, for a 50,000 people thing. And so there was these two guys that came over. They were super nice. We had a good conversation. But like the next day, there was like these crazy people. I think like they're equivalent to the Black Zionists. If you guys know who they are, these people believe that the Native Americans are Jews, that white people are the epitome of all possible evil, and they're just crazy people. Like the way I described it, I tweeted this a few days ago. In the same fervor that I would say that I would like laugh if somebody said that evolution means crocoduck, they laugh when I told them that Jews don't actually control the world. Like they laughed like, what? That's just, you come over here. You got to hear what this guy had to say. It was crazy. But the one thing I wanted, my finishing comment, sorry, was like GE talked a lot about this. The community aspect was really uplifting. The one thing that made me so happy was I went out to see what the hubbub was out in the street, because I filter in and out depending, because I sometimes don't. That's not true. I always feel like arguing. So when I get tired of sitting around, I go out to argue some more. And Aaron, Ron, Jacqueline, Glenn were already there. And I was like, this is what I love, was that I'm not the only one that wants to respond to this sort of thing. So the community aspect is enormously important, and I was very, very happy to be part of it.
Yeah, and honestly, I didn't I didn't get their whole position, that particular group, because I was leaving Peabody to go to the DoubleTree where we were staying, and I noticed them on the right in front of the baseball field, and they had a whole loudspeaker going, and they were just yelling at the top of their lungs. But they said that they weren't Christian, but yet they were reading from a Bible. They were quoting me Bible verses. They were saying Christ is King, and they were doing all this stuff that's typical of Christians, but yet they weren't Christian. And I don't know if they told you this, Dieter, but the reason why they weren't Christian is because they don't push their religion. Okay. Apparently.
I might have missed that part when the bullhorn was being yelled in my face.
Yeah. Well, what I liked is that my interaction with the guy with the billboard saying Psalms 14:1 was that somebody had taken a video of it and posted it, and I love the comments that were like, the chubby guy needs to calm down. I was like, I really wasn't being all that confrontational. Like, I had to raise my voice and like really speak loud because the streets were loud around, and it was just very noisy. But honestly, I think that comparatively to how I've been in the past, I thought that I did really well with not being so, I guess, so much of an asshole. Yeah, I wanted to get Belligerent Atheist's opinion or how he handles like street preachers. I don't know if you've ever come into contact with any street preachers or talked to any of them or whatnot, but if you haven't, what would your demeanor be?
I guess it would really depend on the conversation. Now, over in Land Between the Lakes near Paris, Tennessee, there is an older gentleman who stands out by the road with a sign that says "Free rights for whites," and all whites deserve to be free and have free rights. And so at one point, one of my friends had his black friend in the car, and they were driving by this free rights for whites guy. Now, he's not exactly a religious street preacher, but I think it qualifies here. So they stopped the car because they had to. They couldn't pass by him anymore. And they got out of the car and they walked over to this guy, and as soon as the street guy saw him, he dropped his billboards and he just ran for dear life. I'm not exactly sure what he thought was going to happen, but he was obviously afraid of confrontation. And a lot of the guys that I seem to run into on a regular basis, they're really afraid of being argued with because they know that their arguments are so trivial and they're so shallow that they've been fought before, and they know that they're going to lose. Now, this isn't, of course, true in every situation, and you're always going to run across the people that are very stubborn and are just as belligerent as me. But I don't. I just don't give in to them. I don't let them make me look foolish because I know how foolish their arguments actually are. I just talk them point for point. I try to prevent them from rabbit holing, and prevent them from straw manning and pigeonholing me. And I try to keep them back on point and force them to answer every question that I present as equally as I answer theirs.
Do you have any thoughts or comments on the American Atheist Convention, or the idea that we propose to perhaps become the Underground Railroad of sending atheists in poverty to these conventions?
I think both of those things. The Atheist Convention, I know that it's really great, and I've been to PAX before myself, so I can see the conventions even on a larger scale. But AACon is great to proliferate information, but like Dieter was saying before, you're the people that are going, the ones that you're trying to get to go. If it's pricier, you're not going to get as many people there, and whereas it would be great to stream it. It would take a lot of not only prior negotiation, but it's going to take a lot of resources as well. So as far as like getting a raffle together or a GoFundMe to send people there, it's always great to help people out. It's always great to help each other out, no matter really who they are. But other atheists in need, if they really want to go, I know I wouldn't mind myself, having one in my area, sure, but I mean, sending other people to go, I think working together is what being the community is all about.
Pretty cool, pretty cool. So now we're going to ask you, tell us a little bit, since we've transitioned into this, tell us a little bit more about your parody song and what led you to create this song, God Hates Girls. And maybe, can we even get you to perform it live on the show?
Well, my inspiration came from a few different sources. I've always liked to parody. And matter of fact, I'll walk around just singing my own words to all kinds of songs, just out of tune a lot of the time. Not very well, but I'll walk around and do that. So I've always liked doing that. I've always had a passion for music, and watching some of the debunking videos online, watching some other people, and seeing some of these quote-unquote knights of truth that like to web evangelist all their ideas across and just indoctrinate all these people. I started to get fed up with it, and I started to see all the good that everyone was doing for the fence sitters. I started to see all the comments back and forth and how people were leading, how those outspoken, the new atheists were leading other people to their anti-salvation, so to speak. So after I saw all that and I was introduced to the video God Made Girls, how very sexist, and just how very representative it is of Christianity. And then I saw it brought up on Jacqueline Glenn, and she said that someone needed to do a parody, and all of a sudden, the Belligerent Atheist was born, and so was God Hates Girls. And I just took some time and sat down, and I took most of my inspiration from the good book. It turns out you really don't need to find too many more horrible things or make anything up. It's all in there. So I just pulled my verses together, rhymed it, and then sang it horribly to music.
Yeah, it's great. I also like that you put the subtitles in there, and where the people can find the verses, where you're actually talking about certain things. Like, somebody's got to be in there and make sure those sheets are read.
Right. Well, it was kind of important to me to make sure that everyone knew that I wasn't just blowing smoke out of my ass. That these are actual verses, and a lot of these people haven't even read the Bible at all. So the fact that I'm telling them, hey, here are these verses. If you don't believe me, you can check it out. The great thing about the age of information is that you can check all this stuff out for yourself, and hopefully I get some fence sitters to kind of see that and maybe lean towards our side of the fence a little bit. And I guess maybe if you guys wouldn't mind helping me, I might sing a little bit for you. What do you think?
do it.
Define help.
Well, you guys were jamming out to it the other night, and I heard how well you guys were singing on the song, on the chorus. So what if I sing the first couple of verses, and then we all join in for the chorus and we sing together?
I'm down for that.
Okay.
Okay, my only issue with that is there going to be an issue with the lag between when we are actually hearing it and if we start singing it, and is it just going to sound like a bunch of idiots trying to sing in synchronization?
That would make it even better. Fuck it, let's do it.
Fuck it, we'll do it live!
I think we're all going to sound like idiots anyways, but I'm willing to give it a go.
Yes.
All right.
Somebody got an instrumental? Ooh.
Crank it up, fuckers.
Listen up, you guys.
This is actually
God hates girls.
Somebody's gotta make him feel a man. Somebody's gotta be his helping hand. Somebody's gotta do what he commands. And God hates girls. Somebody... Oh. What? You are the reason for the fall of man, and so God hates girls. Needed someone frail to rape that won't escape, but strong enough to bear the shame. Someone disposable and gullible that has a low self-worth. God hates girls. And the Bible says that Yahweh hates them girls. And God hates girls. God hates girls.
God hates girls.
The Bible says that Yahweh hates them girls. And God hates girls. And that
Well done.
is God hates girls.
That was so good that I'm going to clip that later.
Nice. Send me a link to that so I can put it on my channel too.
Oh, you're confused. I'm going to clip it, then somehow light it on fire.
And now Dieter is going to sing A Whole New World. So go ahead, Dieter. The floor is yours.
Fuck you.
He needed someone frail to rape that can't escape.
So I'm going to be the guy that I didn't hear your song before just now. So you might have seen my reaction.
Yeah, it looked pretty surprised, horrified, and you looked a little turned on. I don't know.
What the fuck do you think turned on looks like? Now I can tell where you got the lyrics from. Fuck.
Alright, so we're really thankful for that he has gotten it stuck into our heads yet again. So I'm going to walk around the house singing this song a little bit more. And my wife is tired of hearing that song because it's pretty catchy, man. You know, somebody's got to lay in that bed. Somebody's got to make sure those sheets are red.
Yep, I'm very glad that she made a very catchy song so that I could, parody it and make it even better.
Yeah, it's just too easy. So, you have any promo you'd like to do? Direct them to the video. I mean, you can find the video if you just type in "God Hates Girls" parody into Google. It'll be the first thing that comes up.
Yeah, you can head over to the Belligerent Atheist, my channel on YouTube. I also repost it pretty regularly on my Twitter. I can get people like Dieter who have never seen it before over to my channel to see it. But yeah, the Belligerent parodies will also pull up God Hates Girls or hashtag God Hates Girls. We'll definitely get you there.
Well, now it is time for my favorite segment of Reason, and the part that Dieter really likes and enjoys, Hypocrite of the Week! Woo! This week's Hypocrite of the Week is going to go to a pastor who was charged with possession of child porn. Now, I chose this for a really good reason. I did a little background information on the guy. It appears that the only thing that he did wrong was have possession of child porn. There are no sexual assault allegations against this guy yet. It seems to be that this is the only thing that he's done and been charged with so far. And there's a specific reason why I wanted to bring this up in the Hypocrite of the Week. So we'll go ahead and play the video, and then we'll discuss it. They're going to make me watch an ad. I can just feel it.
If you feel you are
I knew it.
denied your Social Security benefits, call us now.
Bartell's Law Firm is a proud sponsor of streaming video.
If you need to find your Social Security benefits.
Shot tonight in a small Region 8 town after a former pastor was charged with child porn.
John Mark Wilson was in court today. He is the former pastor of the Brooklyn Church of Christ. Seth Stevenson he is live in Brooklyn right now. Seth, what can you tell us?
Well, Wilson faces those charges after Jonesboro detectives say they found child pornography on his computer. And Detective Brandon King with JPD was able to remotely access a computer where he found images he believed were child porn. Police confiscated computers, phones, and other items from this IP address. Paul Holmes with the police department says the investigation is still in the early stages.
So Detective King, through investigation, was able to identify a suspect in this case and make an arrest. The investigation is still ongoing.
Now, Wilson is free tonight during the probable cause hearing. He was released on his own recognizance. He will be in court in late May. Reporting live from Brooklyn, Seth Stevenson, Region 8 News.
All right. So it appears, like I said in the beginning, that the only thing that this pastor has done wrong at the current moment is that he had possession of child pornography. And I wanted to bring this up because he's still Hypocrite of the Week, even though, you know, and I'm not making light of this either, but I wanted to discuss a larger issue, which is the fact that we kind of touched on this before in the pedophilia discussion, but is this a crime that he should be sentenced to with a severe sentence? Because as a personal anecdote, I had a friend who in the military had possession of child pornography, and when they raided his dorm room, I don't know all the details, but there was some child pornography on his computer. Some of it happened to be naked images of his son. And although the other content that he had was not specified upon in the report, the same charge that was applied to those was also applied to the naked images of his son. And so now, with that being said, we're going to have to go into a broader discussion here about what is child pornography and what should we be punishing someone for if they have possession of it.
Well, I think certainly if you're sharing photos of naked children, then that's a crime and that's a problem. I mean, everybody who's a parent's going to have some kind of nude or semi-nude pictures of their kids at some point in the bathtub or just around the house being goofy or whatever. It also depends on context too, you know, because there's obviously a difference between a candid shot of your kid playing or being goofy and then, you know, posing them in some sort of sexualized manner. You know, there's a difference there. And then obviously those are private images that really shouldn't purposely leave your possession. You know, if somebody hacks into your computer and steals them or something, that's one thing. But if you're disseminating them, then, you know, that's just horrendous. Whether it's your kid or not, probably even worse if it's your own kid that you're doing that. And it's, yeah, I mean, you know, I guess you have to probably take it on a case-by-case basis because, you know, I mean, usually if these people are getting caught, there's a reason for it. You know, they're out there sharing images, or you know, somebody tipped them off. So they're probably doing something that is far beyond, you know, what we would consider, you know, innocent. So as far as punishment, I honestly don't know what the laws are, you know, for child pornography. It probably varies state by state and things like that. But I think they should be pretty harsh because it's kind of a supply and demand thing is really what it is. If there's not a demand for it, then that'll reduce the supply, right? So people won't be motivated to abuse children or to take photos of them or do these things if there aren't people out there willing to consume them. So I think it's got to be a pretty harsh penalty. I can't say exactly what that penalty should be, but I don't think it's something that we should just take lightly, because that is exploiting children, and it just goes, a lot of the time it goes far beyond just somebody sharing pictures of their own kid, or like the neighbor's kid or something. A lot of times there's abuse, or children are actually kidnapped and being trafficked for these types of things. So it can get a lot more serious. And even if you're not one doing those activities, the fact that you're consuming or disseminating these images just, it drives that. So that's the issue, really, I think. Feel free to chime in if you guys have an opinion.
Well, is a crackhead, because he's doing crack, responsible for all the activities that occurred in supplying him with this crack? Is he responsible for all the murders? Is he responsible? Now, I'm not justifying this at all, but I'm just drawing a correlation here. Is that crackhead going to be responsible ultimately for everything up the chain that occurred in order for him to get that crack rock?
I'm not sure that's the best analogy, because the only person really being harmed in that is the person doing the drugs. And I mean, honestly, I think that drugs should, for the most part, be legal. I think people should be able to put whatever in their bodies that they want. If they commit some kind of crime or do something violent or inappropriate, otherwise illegal, while under the influence of drugs, that's something different. We let people drink alcohol, and if they drive drunk, then we punish them. We don't punish them just for drinking alcohol. I'm fairly liberal when it comes to people and drugs and things like that. I don't think we should be punishing people. I think maybe we should be giving people help for substance abuse, rather than throwing them in prison. I don't think maybe we should completely ignore it, but it should be decriminalized. So I don't think that's the best example, because when you have something like child pornography, you have victims. You have children that are being victimized through this process. So, and to an extent, people that are buying drugs that are illegal, they are funding, activities, the cartels, or they're funding terrorism or murders, or, any of that kind of stuff, not directly but indirectly. And that's kind of a separate issue, So, like I said, it's not the best analogy, but yeah, it's just, I guess in the same way that drugs wouldn't be manufactured if there wasn't a demand for it, you wouldn't have these children being victimized nearly as often if people didn't have this, didn't have the supply for the images or for the pornography or whatever.
I guess my position is a little different, but I'm going to let Belligerent Atheist go ahead.
I just had a question. I mean, I know that on issues like this where it's a thought crime, it comes down to, possible intent to do harm. But my question is, at what point do we have to step in? What point do we say that what is that intent? How do we define that intent, and what the point is where we say, now it's illegal?
Yeah, I'm with that. And like in the article, it says that according to the probable cause affidavit, Wilson admitted to downloading and viewing child porn. And that's that's what's stemming from, I guess all of the charges are what's stemming from him downloading and viewing that child porn. There's no indication right now that he shared it, that he was spreading it, but at the moment he just downloaded 5 images of child porn, and his IP address was traced, and that's how they got a hold of him. Now, my thing here is kind of sort of going in the way with what the Belligerent Atheist is saying here, is that if this child pornography is already out there and it is accessible, then these children have already been victimized. Now, I'm going to have to continue to say this, but I'm not justifying child porn. It's a terrible thing to do, to have sex with someone without their consent, and children cannot consent to sex. We've established that. But it's almost like the show where we talked about pedophilia, and the guy who got, I guess, charged with different things, as Dieter was mentioning, because he just came forward and said that he was sexually attracted to children. I think that we have an issue here, and we can't, throw the book, so to speak, at a guy who just downloaded child porn. Yeah, it's terrible. It's a horrible fucking thing, and I'm putting aside the fact that he's a pastor, but because the fact that he is a pastor, it's abhorrent. It's absolutely ridiculous because he shouldn't be in possession of anything of that matter if he's going to attempt to be the moral precedent in his community. And anyone who is willing to wear that coat, so to speak, and is willing to say, yes, I am the moral precedent of my community, and I'm going to represent all the people here, and I'm going to show them the way that they should be living their lives, and they do abhorrent acts like this, then they should be judged a little more harshly, in my opinion. Not only because we know that it's all bullshit and they're misleading people, but the fact that they are really misleading people, and he could be affecting someone in his congregation that is a child porn sex addict. And so that's another issue entirely, but on the other side of it, I did want to mention that I don't think, as I said before, we should just throw the book at this guy just because he was watching child porn. Yeah, it's terrible. It's horrible. Yes, he needs to be punished. And it should be a case-by-case thing, you know. You be punished more severely if you're out there sharing these images, if you're downloading and sharing and promoting them. But if you're downloading them for personal use, no, we shouldn't just throw the book at the guy.
I disagree.
Belligerent atheist.
Yeah, fine.
We said he had a question in the chat.
No, I already asked that before. That was my question before.
Go ahead, Dieter.
One thing we have to make kind of clear is that child porn can include anything from explicitly sexual content to actual like sex with a child to children having sex with each other. There's a broad spectrum of terrible things that people take pictures of kids doing. And more often than not, it's situations that people put the children into. And that's where the danger lies. And that's actually why I'm okay with throwing the book at these people. Because this is a situation where it sets a kind of precedent. It's this kind of material comes from demonstrable harm to other people. It would kind of be equivalent to, like, snuff porn, but to people that didn't consent to it. Assuming that people consented to snuff porn at some point. It's that sort of stuff. It would be like someone videotaping an actual rape happening, and then people are just downloading it and having a ball. I don't think that's expressly illegal, but I'm surprised that it isn't. I'd be surprised if it wasn't, because that is not only like glorifying a terrible situation, but actively indulging in it, and that's not something we really want people to do. It's kind of the same. Like I keep making analogies upon analogies, but I'm trying to make a point. It's people make laws that are for precedent all the time. There's a reason. There's a stupid, but a reason why if you try to commit suicide, it's technically a crime. We're trying to dissuade these sort of situations from happening, as well as have like parameters in place to either forcibly take care of the person afterwards, or just to punish behavior that we see as detrimental to society. Now, suicide is probably a terrible example, but an easier to understand one is you can't sign your life away. You can't say like, hey you, here's $1,000, shoot me in the head right now. That's illegal. You're not allowed to do that. And that's because of precedence. So even if someone downloaded things, the child is already dead, like the child already grew up, lived a full life, and so no one is actually being harmed by these pictures anymore, and they never like disseminate them to their creepy friends, then that's still a problem, because it promotes the idea of it's perfectly fine to download these pictures that demonstrably harm people. And I think that's a problem that we can't just sweep under a rug. Because I don't think this is at all equivalent to the pedophilia conversation we had the other week. Because this is no longer a thought crime, and action was taken.
Well, yeah, I do think that if we don't have things in place, you know, we talked about this in the pedophilia. We don't have 100% efficiency when it comes to dealing with pedophilia. In fact, we probably don't even have 10%. but we can't. I mean, we have to be careful about how we're going to go about doing this. And if we're going to bust this guy for having 5 images of child porn, that's what it was. He downloaded 5 images of child porn. And I'm not downplaying this at all and saying, you know, like you said, if the victim's already dead and gone, it's still a harmful thing. But if we can't deal with pedophiles and we want to pretend like the problem doesn't exist and we only want to punish them when they act on these desires, then we have an issue at hand here. And if this guy is just downloading 5 images of child porn and they traced his IP address, I want to know, why didn't they trace the IP address of where it came from? Why didn't they shut down that site? Why aren't they doing other things? And, you know, I'm not saying that X is greater than Y or something has a greater degree to it, but we do have to be really careful if we're going to try to make an example out of someone, that we look at the context, and as Brendan mentions, it's got to be a case-by-case thing. You know, what was the degree of the crime, and not just throw the book at him. GE.
Well, I was gonna say that I agree with with Dieter, because you know, and I think what Dieter was saying is basically that we need to, you know, still combat, you know, people trying to normalize, you know, the sharing of these images, the viewing of these types of images and whatnot. And you know, as far as you know, focusing on like how many images he downloaded, I don't think that you need to do that so much, just because of the fact that if I would sincerely doubt that these were like the first 5 images he downloaded. You know, I sincerely doubt that this is his first run-in with child pornography. So my prediction as far as this case goes is that if they don't find any more images, then he's probably not going to get like an outrageous amount of charges against him. But my bet is that they might find more images, either through you know, I forget what type of forensics, computer forensics, through you know, various computer forensics methods, you know, finding more images or whatnot that he either had in the past or just didn't delete properly or something like that. And I mean, if these are the only 5 images, then that just means that he was stupid about these 5 images. Because I mean, I'm fairly certain that he's probably been a repeat offender as far as, you know, not being caught. It's just that this time, you know, he fucked up and he got his IP, you know, out there and they traced him. And so my bet is that it goes a little bit deeper, and generally I tend to think things are a bit more involved or complex than what they appear on the surface.
Belligerent atheists.
I agree with actually all 3 of you to a point, and that's that, you know, that child pornography and pedophilia are very serious and they need to be dealt with, and they're absolutely, as you guys keep saying, is that even if the victim is dead and gone, you know, the problem still remains, and it's still a horrible thing. Proliferating the idea that this is okay is not what we need to be doing. So we definitely need to punish appropriately, but we also need to make sure that we're punishing appropriately. I think there are differing degrees, and I think that it is very situational. I think that a man in his barracks room having a few images of his child, and, you know, sometime if he went to a wrong site and something downloaded to his computer, that situation needs to be addressed. Do we need to detain? Do we need to investigate? Absolutely. I think that is 100% necessary so that we can make sure of what is going on. Do we need to, you know, backtrace to a server and try and shut that server down? That's where it becomes a little bit more of, does the government want to shut down the server where everything's being taken from and try to remove the carrot, so to speak, or do they want to let the carrot dangle and try to see who goes after it and then try and take down everyone that comes after it? I think it should be taken down. The more instances that are out there, I think that those images are still harmful to those people, still harmful to those families, and I think that it should be removed. But I'm also not a forensic investigator, and I'm not a crime investigator, nor do I do any type of criminal enforcement, I guess.
Well, let me also mention, too, in this county, they had just founded a new portion of their police force, which is specifically supposed to go after child sexual abuse, and that's their, I forgot what it was called. I was reading about it in the article, but it's basically their new segment of the task force where they're going out and busting people like this. And I think it's like you say, you know, are we going to just dangle the carrot there? Because let's be honest, if someone is a pedophile and they don't want to act upon that, they don't want to go out there and have sex with a child because they know that it's wrong, and they know that they could possibly watch porn on the internet, you can't tell me that they're not going to try to do it, that they're not going to go for it. And in their mind, they may think that it's the lesser of two evils by watching the porn. Now, it's still all bad. And I think that you're right. I think that they don't need to keep that dangling carrot out there, and they don't need to try to use that to show that they can get more cases of people being caught for child pornography to build up this section of the task force. I think that that's also bullshit too, because we've seen a lot of that with drugs, how they do that, how instead of going and busting, you know, the big guy that's smuggling in all the cocaine right there on the border, they're instead going after all the little guys because they know that their organization can continue to be funded if they just stay on the low ground. And so I think that you're right about that. I think that's pretty bullshit if that's what they're doing. And it may seem that way. I know when they start new organizations under their task force, they do stuff like this.
Yeah, that's a good point as far as the the war on drugs and all that, because the DEA and a lot of the government agencies, the Drug Enforcement Agency, and everything that trickles down from there, all the local stuff. Yeah, I mean their jobs are pretty much relying on the war on drugs continuing and them continuing to take down the small fish and letting the big fish continue to supply the product and all that. And it's a problem. It's an institutional problem. And if that's something similar going on here too, that's terrible, because the goal should not to be let's catch as many people as possible and throw them in prison. It should be let's cut the snake's head off and stop it from being a problem. If the supply isn't there, the people who might be tempted by it, whether it's drugs or child pornography or what have you, obviously if they can't find it, they won't be able to get their fix or get what they want or whatever. So I don't think the goal should be to sort of like entrap people in that way. But unfortunately, that's kind of the way sometimes it can go, just the way that the system works. So yeah, I mean, they should definitely go after that, because really what you should be thinking about is the victims. Did they, their images shouldn't be out there, and their families don't want to see that. And it's not about catching, the small fish. I mean, think about it. I'm not trying to compare it to, child pornography, but everybody speeds when they drive, pretty much. Almost everybody speeds. So, I mean, what do you want to do? You want to go out there and just nail everybody for speeding? Or do you maybe just want to get the worst offenders, or maybe, I mean, it's just, it shouldn't be about nailing people and punishing people for doing things that are relatively less, awful, I guess, or, they're not as detrimental. They're not the cause of the problem. They're just a symptom of the problem. So, I just thought that was a good point you brought up as far as that goes.
Yeah, do you see how hard it is to create an analogy out of this? Because it's just bad all around. It's child pornography. No matter what analogy you use, it's just not going to fit perfectly. Go ahead, Dieter.
That's why I'm not in the game of trying to decide which is worse, because no matter what happens, children just end up being harmed. And that's one thing I'm very passionate about, is making sure children are not harmed. or at least get very angry when people try to say that it's okay. Anywho, the one thing I did want to mention, and this actually, the war on drugs is a great example, is instead of focusing so much on catching people that have already committed a crime, you try focusing on like helping the people so they don't commit the crime in the first place. Like, that's just me, but it seemed this kind of goes back to the pedophilia discussion the other week, was if we actually spent effort studying like the phenomenon and actually engaging with these people on like a human level and figuring out like what makes them tick, we might actually figure out a way to deal with the situation and even prevent it from happening, perhaps. Because I have no idea exactly if it's a sexual orientation or not. It might be like a child development thing. I don't care. I don't care what it ends up being, but we need to actually figure it out to know how to deal with it. Because just punishing people for something, either being a thought crime or the manifestation of a thought crime, that doesn't really solve the initial problem. All it does is it's just hurting people that hurt other people, apparently. That's what Belligerent Atheist just said. There's a chat over here for crazy people that had never noticed. Anyway, so in the same thing with like people that abuse drugs, if we start fixing the situations that cause people to turn to drugs in the first place, then that might actually help dissuade the act to begin with. And if there's no demand, like we said before, then there's not going to be a problem. So research, treating people like humans, and only punishing people, or at least preventing people from hurting other people again. So punish people only when they hurt somebody, or do something that promotes hurting somebody, and then prevent them from doing it again. That's should be the goal in general, but I don't run the police force. Oh well. So yeah, I wanted to add that.
If you ran the police force, you would know, though, that you're trying to keep your brand new organization running. So I'm going to do a little more research into this, but I want to find out how many people that they've caught so far, and hopefully this isn't the first guy. But even if it is, like you said, we need to fix it, and we need to find out why it's happening. We need to study it some more, and it really does go back to the pedophilia discussion that we had, where we talked about why pedophilia is an issue and what we need to do to fix it. If you guys want to see that discussion, we'll put a link in the comment section or in the description of the video, rather, so that you can go back and watch that. Does anybody else have anything that they wanted to say about this before we wrap it up and stamp the original pastor with Hypocrite of the Week? Belligerent Atheist?
I can keep talking.
I don't think I have anything else I'd like to add.
All right, Dieter, get out the mallet.
All right, where did I put it?
So, for downloading child pornography when you're supposed to be a moral precedent in your community and not doing these types of things, I can make a biblical case here about how he didn't do anything wrong, which is totally besides the point, okay? But you're supposed to be upholding not only the law of the land, because that's what Romans 13:1 says, that you obey those rulers that have been in place, because no governing authority exists except that which God has placed under authority. And so they have said that child pornography is wrong, and therefore you should be obeying it. And for that, we're going to stamp you with Hypocrite of the Week, and I don't care how much child pornography you looked at. I don't care if you just looked at the image, you didn't download it at all. We're still stamping you. Get him, Dieter. Oh, Dieter was passionate about that one. Hypocrite of the Week. I think that was a pretty good discussion that we had there on the whole child pornography issue. I still think that it is a issue that we need to continue to discuss. We need to figure out ways that we can, really address this. And we can't do. We just can't go out and leave these servers up and leave these sites running. And I've seen that they can block access to certain sites in your country. I mean, you can see that with Google. Like, you can go to YouTube and try to watch a video, and it says the video is unavailable in your country. So I know that we can stop people from watching this. We can reduce the access to it. It'll never be 100% perfect, no, but I think that we can change the situation. And like you guys said, if you reduce the supply, there won't be a demand. What are you saying? What are you saying, Brendan?
Nothing. I was just trying to be funny. I said, don't worry, the government's taking over the internet now, because the whole net neutrality thing. So the government's taking over, and they'll just own everything. They'll shut you down. Don't worry about it.
Well, that
they'll
just,
shut our show
that just
down
means,
too.
that just means they're going to have online versions of, what was it, like the Dateline NBC thing? Do you guys remember that?
To Catch a Predator with Brian Hansen. Yeah. Yes, absolutely.
Yes, they're going to have online versions of that now. They're not going to shut these servers down. They want these police forces to grow, and they want one in your county. So because someone in your county is looking at child pornography, they're going to start one, and they're going to start getting people for it. And I hope that you're not one of those people that just happens to have some, some pictures of your kids on your computer. I don't know in the personal story that I told you guys what the other things that he had, but I do know that for having like 3 pictures of his son naked in a bathtub, the same charge that was applied 3 times for those pictures. And there was an outrage over the entire base about this. Even the base commander was pretty pissed about that. Not only because we didn't know the whole context, but they told us that he was being punished for that as well. So it was almost as if they wanted to make an example out of this guy, and that's what I'm advocating for. I'm saying, like, yes, it's a crime, yes, it's bad, but we shouldn't be, don't give this guy for downloading 5 images. Don't give him 30 years in prison. Okay? If there's more stuff, yes. But like we said, case-by-case basis, let's look at all the facts. Let's look at all the evidence, the data, his searches. Let's get all of this information before we just start throwing the book at people and trying to fuel this prison-for-profit system that we have set up in the United States.
In my ideal world, he'd go get treatment. Or not really, treatment's the wrong word. He'd go get therapy. And the therapy would include not being allowed to be in the public for a while. Because obviously he has urges of some kind that are detrimental to other people. So,
what if in the therapy
the people, but they need to take preventative measures. So, force therapy.
What if in the therapy they showed him child porn, and every time they showed it to him, they shocked him, or burned him, or do that crazy conversion therapy stuff they do with
that doesn't
homosexuals?
Work. All that'll do is just like, hey, look at that family walking down the street with their kid. Suddenly I'm filled with unbridled rage.
You mean we can't just shock the gay away?
Hey, I don't know where you're coming up with this gay thing, but we were talking about pedophiles, and those aren't the same thing.
Well, I was talking about the conversion therapy. The conversion therapy.
I know what you're talking about, you ass. Goddamn. But yeah, in my ideal situation, situations like this would be handled more on a treatment basis rather than a punishment basis. Because the idea is to not get repeat offenders. And straight up punishment won't make you stop doing crimes. It'll just make you hide it better.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I mean, but we know, whether we want to label this a conspiracy theory or not, we do know for a fact that the police, I didn't want to really call it a police state, but the state of police that we have in the United States is ran by the taxpayer, and it functions on the assumption that people are out there committing crimes, and that's where the money is made. You take these people to court, you throw them in jail, we have prisons for profit, we have all of this stuff, and I'm not even trying to say that, these child porn people are being funneled into prison, because there are a group of people being funneled into prison that we've talked about on this show before, and it's not them. And I guess GE got bored with us. He said, yo, guys, fuck this shit. I'm out, okay? I'm tired of talking about this shit. So, yeah, GE just dipped on us. He probably lost connection or something. I'm just messing around with you guys. But we're going to go ahead and wrap the show up. Let's go ahead and give a special thanks to the Belligerent Atheist for joining us tonight and for singing a little portion of his show, for singing a little portion of his song for the show. Whew.
Well, thank you. Thank you guys for having me.
Yeah, any last words?
I really appreciate you guys letting me on. I really appreciate the discussion here. This is a lot of fun, and I do have a live event that I'm working on coming up in June that I thought I might plug here at the end if you guys didn't mind. Thinking of calling it Realities Breakdown. I got Guy in a Wheelchair, Neckbeard Nation. We're going to be getting together and throwing some stuff together. I do have to upgrade some of the computers over here in the after bits, and but besides that, I really appreciate you guys having me on. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, we really appreciate having you, and I'm sure that us singing that song was the highlight of the show.
Absolutely, it was for me. It was for me.
Even though it sounded really terrible in my headphones, I'm like singing, God hates girls, and I just hear G in the back while I'm singing the verse. He's like, God hates girls.
Yeah, it was a pretty good round robin that we had going there.
If that was the best part, then I'm very sorry.
And Dieter obviously has no sense of humor.
Fuck you.
Alright, and with that, folks, we're going to go ahead and end the show. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to tune in for next week's episode. Actually, don't forget to tune in every week, Sunday night at 9 p.m. Eastern, where we do this same thing over again to attempt to entertain you guys and inform you and educate you now that we have the new science this week. So next week's episode is probably going to be about evolution and the creation debate. And is there really a debate there? But we're going to be talking about that. And we're going to have on RJ Downard. You can check him out on Twitter. He's going to be coming on, and he has a blog in which I've been unable to go through all of the information he has on his blog. He has like a really, really lot of information over there on his blog. And Dieter's asking, can he talk the entire time? An episode on evolution, I'm expecting you and Brendan to do a lot of the talking.
Yeah, certainly that might be the case. Also, I'm hoping to have on the guy that runs the Twitter handle, Take That Darwin. So that should be pretty entertaining. I want to ask him some of the most interesting and amusing things that he's come across on the Twitters over there, because he basically retweets people that make ridiculous comments in response to evolution, and then kind of attract other people like myself who can then attempt to educate creationists and whatnot. So a lot of pretty amusing things. So yeah, and then also having RJ Downard on, which should be good. He's got a lot of information on his blog like you were talking about. So yeah, tune in next week and check that out. Should be pretty good.
Yep, so thank you guys for watching. Sorry about the technical difficulties. Hopefully we won't have those ever again in the future. We can dream. Anyway, thanks for watching. Don't forget to think skeptically and stay godless. Keep calm. It seems legit. And as always, thanks for watching.